Hey guys, in case you couldn't tell, we're going to be talking about the natural minor scale today. I was trying to stick to all natural minor stuff like minor pentatonic, arpeggios, and then the Aeolian mode natural minor scale. Anyway, I hope you're having a great week this week. I'm on a bit of a work marathon since Monday, and that'll last until tomorrow evening. Then I'll get to catch my breath. But hopefully you've had, some progress with whatever your guitar goals are this week. Today, like I said, we're going to talk about the natural minor scale. What do we have for resources, Andrew?
MP3 and PDF, kind of the same as always. The MP3 is what we just played over. So there's 9 minor chords all played at one time. No, it's one minor chord the whole
pick
time.
Any of them to play.
It's the same the whole time, which is kind of fun. I like when there's one chord because it kind of forces you to be creative, right? I don't know. The landscape doesn't change. I think it's really cool. And then we have the PDF, which is basically going to be what Nate's going to walk us through today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about how the minor scale is made, a couple different ways to look at it. Then we're going to go through a couple of different standard shapes. So if you don't know, or if you've never played the natural minor scale or Aeolian mode, the sixth mode of the major scale, you can just use those to start to get that tonality under your fingers and in your head. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of ways you can attack this if you're more like an upper intermediate player or approaching advanced. So you can think about these shapes as far as, picking your notes out of them instead of just playing through the scale shape to improvise. So that's going to be cool. And we're going to be in the key of C minor for the rest of today. And the jam track we have for you is also in the key of C minor. So just be aware of that as we move through this.
Okay.
Cool. If you look at the PDF, it starts off, you're going to see a C major scale. But on that graphic, the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes are going to be circled. Now, there's an important reason for that. Those are the notes that you need to alter or do something to in order to create a natural minor scale out of our starting point, which is the major scale. And if you don't know the C major scale, it's C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Those are the 7 notes in the C major scale. And I picked that one because it's the easiest place to start. There are no sharps, no flats, and it works really good for our example of how to take a major scale, really good starting point, and alter 3 notes in it, the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes to come up with your natural minor scale, which is the point of this thing. And if you've never messed with modes before or never thought about modes, even though the major scale is a mode, this is a really great kind of starting point because I would say that the natural minor scale or the Aeolian mode is probably the most common mode other than the Ionian or major scale mode.
Now, before we just move on, do you want to maybe say what a mode is? We talk about it a lot.
I like to think about modes as a certain tonality you can express or a certain sound or a certain color you can express by emphasizing or having different notes of the major scale as your root note or your starting point or your home base. So for example, you can start on the 2nd note of the major scale and kind of have that world be your home base and express that mode of the major scale, just starting on the 2nd scale degree. So in this case, if you had like a C major scale, the 2nd scale degree would be a D, and you would be playing in D Dorian.
And that would be if you started and ended on the D, but the intervals stayed the same, right?
Yeah, it would be so D, E, F, G, A, B, C, back to D, and that's the D Dorian scale. And you can do that with every note in the major scale, and it'd be just be a different mode of that major scale. So today we're going to be focusing on the 6th scale degree of any major scale, which is the Aeolian mode, also known as the natural minor scale or just minor scale for short. So
cool.
So if you have a major scale, any major scale, doesn't matter what it is, it could be F sharp major or C sharp major with all sharps, right? All you have to do, in this case, we're going to be using just a C major scale, no sharps, no flats. All you have to do is lower the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes by 1/2 step each. And that will give you the equivalent minor scale. So if you have a C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and you wanted to lower or create a C natural minor scale out of that, all you would have to do is lower the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes by 1/2 step each. So instead of playing 1, 2, 3 for a major scale, you would go 1, 2, 3. Just lower that 3rd scale degree by 1/2 step. And do the same thing for the 6th and 7th notes. 4, 5, 6 is normally here. Lower that by 1/2 step as well. 6, 7 is normally here, so lower that by 1/2 step, and then back to C. So you go from a C major to a C natural minor. So that's the first way that you can think about making a natural minor scale, is to take whatever corresponding major scale, like the parent one, C major in this case, and just lower the third, sixth, and seventh notes, and that will give you the equivalent minor scale. In this case, the key signature for C major is no sharps and no flats, but when you alter the third, sixth, and seventh notes, you make a C minor scale with which the key signature happens to be 3 flats, E flat, A flat, and B flat, and that gives you the key signature of 3 flats for C minor. And you can see that in the next graphic there. It's just a C minor scale written out. It kind of shows you the difference between that first graphic, which was a C major scale with the 3, 6, and 7 circled, and then taking those 3, 6, and 7 notes and lowering them by 1/2 step to get that key signature E flat, A flat, and B flat. Now, the next way we're going to think about making the natural minor scale is to just think about a series of whole steps and half steps. Just like you have a major scale formula, you have a minor scale formula too that you can use. You can choose to think about it that way if you want to. And the major scale formula is just whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And it's similar to that. It's just the order of whole steps and half steps is a little bit different. Instead of that, you have, start on your C, you have whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So either way you want to think about it is fine. The end results are the same. You're going to end up with the same key signature for C minor, 3 flats, E flat, B flat, and A flat. So
Nice.
either way you want to think about it. Now, this isn't on the PDF, but I want to touch on it real quick just because it came to my mind. As far as something called relative majors and relative minors, it's really important. So remember how I said when Andrew asked me that question, what is a mode and how do you know? I'm going to relate this back to the parent major key real quick. So
Okay.
this is going to have the major key that goes along with this minor key of C minor. It's going to have the same key signature. So we're going to have 3 flats. But the key is we have to find out what that note is so we can start there. And if we start on that note, that'll give us the 1 or the Ionic mode or just a major scale, right? Mm-hmm. And a trick to doing this is to just go to the 3rd scale degree of whatever minor key you're in, right?
Right.
So if you're on a C and you're playing a C minor scale, all you have to do is go to the 3rd note in the scale, C, D, E flat. And if you do that, that's going to give you your relative major scale. And all a relative major scale to that minor scale is, all that is, it's a key that's major, that's the 1 instead of the 6 that has the exact same notes in it. So if you play a C minor scale starting on the E flat, the 6th or the 3rd scale degree, all of a sudden you're playing an E flat major, which is really cool. So this is kind of a cool way to cross train and work on drilling your keys. Like this week, this was my key I went over when I was doing all my practicing. I was in the key of C minor or E flat major, thinking about those shapes and those 2 scales all the time while I was practicing. So that's really good to know and be aware of how to find any parent major key to whatever mode you're in. So,
Right.
E flat major. And if I go down to that 6, back into C minor.
Yeah.
Right? Same key signature though, so you kind of get to double dip when you're working on things like key signatures. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that tells you how you can arrive and the theory behind minor scales in general, natural minor scales in general. And if you need any clarification on this, just leave a question. Go ahead and submit a question, or leave a comment in the chat if you're in the members area. Yes. Either way, I think that's enough as far as getting to the theory of it. Now I want to get your hands on the guitar and show you a couple shapes for the C natural minor scale. I have 2 of them for you. The first one is a 3-note per string scale. That just means that every single string that we're going to be playing on has 3 notes on it. So it's very even feeling. And the second one is a traditional kind of C minor shape. And that's going to have 2 notes on some strings and 3 notes on other strings. And we're going to be using 6 one shapes for both of these scales. And all that means is the 6th string has your lowest root note, or the lowest, the padded string, low E, has your lowest root note, and you're going to be playing that lowest root note with your first finger. That's all it means. So first thing we need to do is find a C note on the 6th string, right? So 6-1, and play it with your first finger. And if you're not familiar with the notes, on the low E string, there's one right here on the 8th fret. So that's your C, and all you have to really do is, if you want to think about the notes, C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, you can do that. Or if you want to go ahead and just learn the shape and kind of get it down, that's another way to do it. But I would encourage you to say the names of the notes out loud as we do this. Just remember B flat, E flat, and A flat are the flats you need, the three that you need to substitute for the natural notes as we go through this scale. So, and one tip for learning scale patterns is to look for repeating patterns throughout the scale so you can cut down on your memorization time. And the first two strings of this scale shape are a really good example of that. They're the exact same pattern. All it is 8, 10, 11 with your first, third, and fourth fingers, right? Take as much time as you need, pull up the PDF and take a look at the scale shape. You'll notice that the root here, that C note is filled in, it's in black. That's just there to help you remember that that's one of your kind of home bases or mainstays for the scale shape. But the next string over is the exact same pattern. It's just 1, 3, and 4 on 8, 10, and 11. And don't worry too much about technique right now. If you're a beginner, this is where you want to start. You want to understand how the scale is made, which you've already gone over. And then just start getting this under your fingers and trying to be aware of where that root note is. And just worry about those 6 notes at first. When you feel comfortable with that after a couple days, maybe after a couple hours, you can add the notes in on the next string. And all that is, it's the same thing with your first and second fingers here. You're going to have 8 and 10, but you have a stretch here up to the 12th fret with your pinky. So, and you don't have to leave that index finger planted to make that stretch either. So you have a fret in between each finger on that string. And that kind of takes us to the first octave of this shape. Right there, that's another C there with your second finger on the 10th fret of the D. And if you can, try to say the note names out loud too. C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, and then D.
Nice.
C, B, A flat, G, F, E flat, D, C. And it can be challenging to say them backwards, but if you work on doing that, you're going to notice that you're going to get pretty good at saying the alphabet backwards, then it'll be a lot easier for you. So that's the first octave. Now the next 2 strings are the exact same pattern we have on the D string, which is great because you don't have to memorize anything. You just have to be able to transfer that shape over the next 2 strings. So G string, 8, 10, 12, first, second, fourth fingers. Take this as slow as you need to. Be aware of where the root notes are there. C, D, E flat, F, G, F, E flat, D, C. And then when you get to the B string, it's the exact same pattern, but you have to shift it up 1 fret because of the way the guitar is tuned. So we're still going to have this pattern, but we're going to move it up 1 fret to where your index finger is starting there on the 9th fret. So you're still skipping 1 fret in between each note. When you go back to the G string, go down a fret. So hopefully you see how this is the exact same pattern on the D string, G string, and B string. And here is the other root note, the last root note for this shape. That's a C right there with your pinky on the 13th fret of the high, or the B string. And there's only 1 string left. It's just the high E string, and here's the pattern for that. So first finger on the 10th fret, second finger 11th, fourth finger 13. And if you notice, I just landed on an E flat there I guess by accident. But it sounds just like a major scale now because I landed on the relative major note, or the 1. And it sounds just like an E major scale. Now, back down to the C. Back to the E flat, right? So really you're learning a shape that you can use for any mode. focusing our root notes on what would be the C here, the sixth scale degree of the relative major scale, right here, right there. So take as much time as you need to get that down. The diagram is in the PDF for you. So is the tablature. If you want to go through that, every note's picked on there. That's what the little markers under each note are. Take as much time as you need with that. And let's go ahead and move on to what I would consider to be kind of an intermediate topic. Or do we have any like pressing questions in the chat or anything?
Nope. Nope, nothing pressing.
Okay, just sweet water.
Take a drink of water.
Okay, this second scale shape, like I said, is a traditional scale shape, or what people would say maybe a jazz shape. And it starts off on the same exact root note, or our lowest root note is on the sixth string with your first finger, right? We don't have 3 notes per string on this scale. We have 3 notes on some strings and 2 notes on other strings. So it's a little bit asymmetrical feeling or a little bit lopsided in some areas. There's only one string that has 2 notes on it, and that's the D string. Now, if you look really closely, the first 2 strings are the exact same shape as the 3 note per string version that we were working on. So this pattern right here on both of those strings, nothing changes. The next string over the D string is where things go a little bit different. You still have 8 and 10 with your first and third fingers, but once you get there, you have to jump back to compensate for the way the shape goes. You play 7, 8, and 10 with your first, second, and fourth fingers. And I'm going through this shape a little bit faster because if you're an intermediate player, you should be able to pick up on this a little bit faster. So, and you have the exact same pattern on the next string, the B string. And then the high E string. Remember to look for patterns as you're memorizing new scale shapes. It's the exact same shape as we started out with on the low E string. So 3 of these strings are the exact same shape. All you have to do is worry about the D, G, and B strings for being different. Okay, so if that's new to you, great, work on that, get it down. If that's not new to you, I have the challenge for you intermediate players out there this week is to work on memorizing where the arpeggio is within this scale shape. And this is something...
One thing I just want to mention is that looks a lot like the traditional minor pentatonic scale.
It's darn close, because check it out. Here is this scale shape that we just went over, the 6-1 shape, is based off of this minor bar chord shape, just the E minor bar chord shape. Now, what does that look like? Like Andrew just said. Right? Almost all the same notes as the notes in a C minor bar chord using that E minor shape, right? So the challenge here is to play through that natural minor scale and visualize this chord shape as you do that. And not only visualize it, but recognize which notes, which scale degrees that you're playing. Sorry, that's hard to say. Which scale degrees are actually being played.
Yeah.
So that's the root, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, root. And if you add in some thirds here and here, that's the next graphic. You're going to see them labeled. This is a C minor arpeggio, an E minor shape. All we're doing is adding the thirds in. A lower third and a lower third here. So you have 1, lower third, 5th, 1, lower third, 5th, 1, lower third. The cool thing about that is if you can visualize those things, that chord shape, this arpeggio, and this natural minor scale, you can pull out the important notes to play over a C minor chord. So if I want to play the third of a C minor chord, I know it's right there. So E flat, E flat, E flat. The 5th, G, G, C. And that's kind of the next step as far as, okay, I've learned these skills. Now what do I do with them? How do I use them? You got to learn where those notes are and then start working on hearing a melody in here. Da, 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 da. Da, da. with the chord tones, and then you can fill the other notes in as far as like the 2, the second scale degree, the 4th, the 6th, those types of things. But check it out. Look at those last 4 scale diagrams and arpeggios, and just go through them. So I would start with maybe the arpeggio. Then maybe go minor pentatonic, because you're only really adding a couple notes in there. And then go natural minor scale. If you're really adventurous, maybe you can throw in a minor 7 arpeggio. What you're doing is taking 1, 3, 5, adding the lowered 7th in. It's really close to, that's even closer to the minor pentatonic scale because you're only 1 note away from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next level, what I would recommend doing. Either, well, it doesn't matter what level you're at. If you're a brand new beginner guitar player, if you're an intermediate player, if you're pushing advanced, I would take this jam track that comes along with this, and if you're a beginner, just start going over the shape and memorizing where the note names are. If you're a more intermediate player, maybe try putting that arpeggio in there and mixing up the minor pentatonic scale as well, and being really aware of what chord tones you're hitting as you play through that natural minor scale. And if you're more of an advanced player, try putting that minor 7th arpeggio in there and start knowing where the 7th scale degrees are, the 6s, the 2s, and the 4s. Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
But this is something I'm working on in a modal context right now. I will pick 1 mode per week or 1 mode per every 3 days in whatever key that I'm working on that particular week, like in this case, C minor. And I will go through every position playing all of those things. The mode, the scale shape we worked on, the arpeggio, 1, 3, and 5, the minor 7 arpeggio in this case, the 7th arpeggio, and the pentatonic that goes along with it.
Yeah, totally. See, it's interesting to like see this stuff because I think of it very differently, where I just translate every major or every minor key just into a major key and then just emphasize the 6th notes.
Same thing.
So it's the same thing, but it's just a different way of approaching it. Very cool. Do you want to jump into questions?
Yeah, if we got them.
Okay. We do have questions, but I'll just let you guys know if you do want to submit questions in your members, below the video, questions tab, type in your question, and it'll get sent to us, and we will answer it. If we have time, which there's not a ton of questions, so we should have lots of time. One other thing I will mention is we're going to give away some more T-shirts. So those of you guys on Facebook, comment below, and we'll pick a random winner. For those of you guys that are members, you just have to comment in chat, and we'll pick a random winner. And then for those of you guys on YouTube, we're going to find a way to get you guys shirts, but comment below. Comment below. Okay.
By the way, the reason we're doing natural minor scales this week is because I just finished natural minor scales 1 for the members area. I don't know if it's out yet. Maybe Andrew. It's not out yet. Okay.
Nope.
So, but it's coming. If you're a member, I'll say the next week or 2 it should be up.
Yeah, it should be soon.
And it breaks down everything that we want over here in more detail, and it gives a lot of musical examples as well. So
yeah, yeah, very cool. Okay, very first question. This one is from Nylock1004. Hey boys, Colin here. Just on the modal side of things, you're playing an A minor scale. If it is Aeolian, then that is the 6th degree in the key of C major. Does it become the key of A minor at some point? If so, then theoretically, what are the rules to determine when the key signature is one or the other?
Well, it's the same key signature. Key signature doesn't change. It would be just like what key you're saying that it's in.
Yeah. Which there's probably a little subjectivity. I know some people...
There is, yeah. I would say whenever that A minor is being emphasized more heavily than the C major, or like if a cadence is falling towards the A instead of the C, then I would say you're in A minor.
Absolutely. Yep, I'd agree. Mode stuff starts getting crazy, hey?
What's that?
When people start asking about modes and stuff, it gets worse. It gets more confusing.
I still listen to a lot of Joe Satriani. He does a lot of modal playing. So if you're having a hard time nailing down what different modes sound like, and you've been working with, you're trying to emphasize the notes, go listen to some Joe Satriani. It's a really easy, accessible way to hear different modes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, next one here. This is from Piyajutsu. A friend of mine who plays told me not to just count the notes, but feel the piece of music I'm trying to learn. Is that something that can be learned? And if so, what's the best way to learn it?
I assume you're talking about timing?
Yeah, maybe like looking at sheet music and seeing the
Yeah,
playing exactly as it's written, maybe?
If you come from a background where you're more classically trained and you can read music, that's awesome, because I can read music, but I'm not really proficient at it because I don't do it very much. But if you're coming from that background, it can be really easy to be very dry and regimented in the way you interpret something off of a page. And I think what you might be referring to is just the feel of a song is staying in time, instead of counting, every beat and every phrase in a certain piece of music that has a specific feel. And I've seen a lot of people do this that have been in situations where they're readers and they're coming into a situation where there's no music, so they don't know what to play, or they don't know what the feel is supposed to be like. I would say listen to a lot of music, and just spend a lot of time playing along to music too. What you listen to and who you listen to, that feel is eventually going to rub off on you, I would think. But as far as reading, I'm not a great reader, but I still have trouble with that. Like I'm getting the feel for a song down. I'm pretty white. So, and that comes through. I'm very on the beat, or even a lot of times ahead of the beat. When I have to lay back, it's a bit of a challenge for me.
Yeah.
So just actually working on that. Like if I were having trouble with like a funk tune or something, I would literally put the song on and intentionally practice being behind the beat more than I should. And that's tough for me.
Yeah. And I think too, I don't know if this is directly kind of answering that question or if it's a little off, but there's a lot of kind of subjectivity in what you can play rhythmically over something else. Like if I gave Nate a beat, there's 1,000 possibilities of rhythms he could play that would sound good, right? And he would be choosing what would serve the music, but there's more than one thing that would sound good in most cases. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
I hope so. If not, submit another question.
Yeah, send in another one. Okay, so next question from Bean Jammin. Are we ever going to figure out what that drum kit is for? You just put fingerprints on the cymbals.
That's fine. They don't know. Taylor's in there. Shoot.
I'll tell you one thing. I can't play drums. Nate, you can play drums.
I can play drums okay.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what. If they put a steering wheel back there, I will shred.
Drive the bus?
Yeah. Oh, dude. Steering wheel, I can drum great.
Well, actually, hopefully in the next year or so, we have a lot of really cool stuff coming as far as like full band stuff.
Yeah.
For you guys. So
playing along with drummers and other musicians and lots of cool stuff. It's going to be cool. But really, it's just to look at.
Benjamin's brother plays drums, I know. So.
Oh, does he? Yeah. Oh, cool. Next question. From S. Williams 2549, do you have a recommended pattern that shifts as you move up the next octave of the neck?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean. As far as patterns, that shifts, because to me, all that means is going up the next position for whatever key you're in. So if I'm playing a C minor, right, the next position. Crap, sorry. That's the next position up, and that's based off of like what would be a G minor chord shape. And I'm thinking this C right here, playing just that same 3-note per string shape C minor scale, and kind of the same thing down here as well.
Yeah.
And this shape is based off of the A minor shape.
Yeah.
Maybe you're talking about something like that, where I'm taking that 3-note per string pattern that we started out with, this one, right?
Yeah.
Playing it down here on this C, sliding up 1 fret, and then starting the same exact pattern on this C right here. Shifting because the B string is where our tuning changes.
Yeah.
Sliding up. And starting the same exact pattern on this C. Yeah. Hope that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, guitar's weird because you go technically up and down octaves like that way and that way at the same time. So there's kind of a couple ways to approach it.
Yeah, if you want to clarify that, hopefully that's what you're talking about. If you want to clarify,
and
then another question, that's totally fine too. Because you could have been talking about a couple of other things.
For sure. Next one from Les Johnson.
Hey, Les.
Hi, guys. Sorry, got here a bit late and missed the start. With that in mind, I'm going to throw this question in. I know there are 7 modal shapes, but which one could you say are the most popular to learn for rock and progressive rock? As I know some of the shapes tend to be a bit exotic sounding.
I would say probably the number one for that is the one we went over, the 6/1 3-note per string pattern. This one. Just because metal and rock prog stuff too uses a lot of minor keys. So that would be one that I would definitely get down starting. And the cool thing about learning all these modal shapes is when you learn one like that one, you can move it to any string, like the 5th string, for example. When you're playing the exact same shape, we compensate when you get to the B string because of the tuning, right? So you're playing the exact same shape. Compensate when you get to the B string, same exact shape, nothing changed. Same thing if I want to find a C on the 4th string, compensate when you get to the B string. Same thing, find a C on the 3rd string, compensate when you get to the B string. So you have all these places you can play a C minor scale. Same thing, start here on the B string. Same thing, start here on the high E string.
I think you might be talking about which mode. Which mode is the best one to get into?
That one.
So
Aeolian,
yeah.
Aeolian, and probably harmonic minor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which harmonic minor, all you have to do is raise the 7th scale degree when you play it. So instead of right there, raise it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
That
I would
makes
do
sense.
that.
I never think of the minor scale as mode. I don't know why.
Dorian too, Dorian scale, same shape, same idea.
That's what I was going to recommend because I think it's Dorian, but
Yeah,
when I'm
it's just a little more moody sounding version of the Aeolian mode, I think. Anyways.
yeah. Because can you just play a C minor for a second? Because I just want to see. Would that be? Yeah, I love that sound. That's the one I use a lot.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't always know the names of them, so. Okay, next one from Alan G513. Nate, could you demonstrate the Mixolydian mode and explain how it's made?
Sure. This is, no, it's different than the question I was thinking of. But let's go ahead and start with C again. And if you have a C major scale, that would be based off of the 1, right? If you wanted to base that off of the 5 starting on the C, that would be a Mixolydian mode, which means you would have to adjust one note and you'd have to take the 7th scale degree and lower it by 1/2 step. Now, the reason, well, not necessarily the reason, but one big telltale or way to think about this is if you have a C7 chord. Dominant 7th chords usually or almost always go with the 5 chord of any major key. So if I was in the key of F major, what's the 5 chord in the key of F major? F, G, A, B flat, C. So a diatonic 5 chord, if you wanted to add a 7th to it, would be a dominant 7th chord. It's just the way it works naturally. So,
Okay.
So there's your tonal center. And all you're doing when you have a dominant 7th chord is taking that root and lowering it down to a lowered 7th, right? That lowered 7th note is, all that is the 7th scale degree of what would be a C major scale,
Yeah.
lowered by one whole half step there. So instead of having that B, you're gonna have a B flat.
Right.
So if you go back to this shape, the 6th string root note, 3-note per string shape, if you had a C major, C, D, E, F, G, course, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, back to C. All you have to do is take every B note in that scale and lower it down to a B flat, and you'd end up with this. And the way you think about that is just one whole step below the root. So there's only half step between B and C, so you need a B flat to a C. But the cool thing about this is all it is an F major scale.
Yeah.
If you start on an F, all you have to do is think about the F major scale, that shape, and you're good to go.
That's exactly
So-
how I cheat.
Just take the 7th scale degree of whatever equivalent major scale,
Fifth.
like in this
Isn't
case
it
C
fifth?
major,
Or I
then
see
lower
what
down
you're
to a
saying.
B flat,
Yeah.
or lower by 1/2 step.
Very cool. Another one from Les. Hi, Mr. Clark. Hi, Mr. Savage. I don't know if it's any of my business, but may I ask why you've been in the Drumeo studio for the last few weeks?
Because we have been acquired by Drumeo. We are now
true.
part of the family.
It's true.
Yep.
Crazy. We'll do some more official talks about that stuff later.
Yeah,
but
it's coming.
yeah. Pretty cool though.
Yep.
Really cool. Okay. Next one here. Oh,
Out of order.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to do that because I'm totally going to miss one. Okay, this one's from Shellac. I'm just learning the major scale, only 3 weeks playing so far. I understand a bit of what is being taught. My question is, what happens to these scales if you're supposed to be tuned differently for music, or does tuning affect this at all?
Yeah, as soon as you tune differently, like drop D, for example, you have to compensate for that and just think, okay, everything on this string is a whole step or a half step lower or whatever. Probably the most experience I have with that is DADGAD tuning, and most of my experience with that is for pieces that I've written, so I'm not really thinking about scale shapes. I'm just thinking about memorized things, or memorized piece of music that I've done, so I'm not thinking about shapes at all, really. I'm just thinking about patterns that are memorized. If you are going to do some alternate tunings, you do have to think about probably more the relationship of the intervals between the strings, and then you have to either compensate for it, thinking back to a standard tuning, or you just have to do it by knowing what your strings are tuned to, and then knowing what notes you're playing.
Yeah. For a lot of people I know, it's you just relearn every shape.
Yep.
Most people stick to kind of one tuning, and if they play in different tuning, it'll be like, oh, I play in drop D and then in drop C, which is just the same thing,
Right.
but a whole step down. Or
Then-
the same with standard, right?
Yeah, if I'm doing that, like down a whole step or up a whole step, I think about numbers instead of
Same. Yeah.
keys. So,
But especially if you're going to start playing in, say, like open E major or something weird, all the shapes are different. You kind of have to relearn it.
but the cool thing about that is I've had this happen a couple times. I've thrown my acoustic in a different tuning, and I've come up with a really cool song just because I'm inspired by that tuning. It sounds different. I have no idea what the sounds are going to come out when I put my fingers in a particular spot, so new things come out.
Totally.
It's a really cool experiment to do.
Absolutely. Next question. This one's from Zopum14. I didn't quite understand what you said about changing modes when you said start in C, go to the second note, a D note,
Okay.
and then just play a D major scale, which is not what you did. Isn't that just a D major scale? What makes that a mode? I must be missing something in there.
Okay, I'll give you a comparison here. So if we have a C major scale, if I were to go to a D major scale, like go up to a D note and play a D major scale, I could do the exact same shape, but I'd be playing a D major scale, still based on the one. Even if I use the second finger starting. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if I take that C major scale and stick with it, that's my parent kind of home base, and start on the D note and just play up that same shape. Play D minor real quick. I'll play C major. I'm still playing the notes in a C major scale, but right there I was emphasizing or landing on the C note for the first mode, or the major scale, Ionian, and then I was starting on the D note, the second note of that C major scale, to play the D Dorian mode.
Yeah. Different notes. A D Dorian and D major have different notes.
Different notes, yeah. The notes in a D major scale are D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D.
Yep.
The notes in a D Dorian scale are D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Same notes as in regular C major scale.
Yeah.
Violin mode. Yeah.
It gets confusing as heck. It's awesome. Okay, next question. This one's from Bill Bright 486. Hey, Andrew and Nate. You're doing very great work. Thank you. Nate at GS, you taught me how to use the cage sequence with the symmetrical minor scale. It is very cool to play the C minor scale up the fretboard with cage. Do you still feel that is important or valuable to lead guitar playing?
Yeah, 100%. I sort of don't distinguish between like the 3-note per strings scale system and the cage system for navigating the fretboard. I just think about them as extensions of each other. Like for example, what he's talking about is if you have a C minor chord, you have a chord, this A minor chord shape is your foundation. Then you have a scale shape that goes along with it. And then you have that minor pentatonic that goes along with that. But you can also play a 3-note. This scale had 3 notes on some strings and 2 on this one right here. Now the 3-note per string system, we do this. I look at them as kind of the same thing. It's just a different way to play it. And then I just shifted up to the next position, which is the G shape in the caged sequence. And I really don't see a distinction between them. It's just whatever area of the fretboard I want to go to or whatever I want to hear, I might pick one over the other. But I think it's really important, and I know a lot of country players do, and they think about the cage system more. And a lot of rock players think kind of biased against the cage system, and they think about just the 3-note per string system.
They'll quite often even tell you not to learn the cage system.
They will, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's somebody that I respect a lot, and he's an awesome player, told me that, and I was like, that's great, but I disagree.
Yeah.
No, because he was actually giving me a lesson. So
yeah. You ever heard of Brad Paisley? He basically just uses caged. Anyways. Next one. It looks like this is a follow-up to one of them. This was a follow-up to the recommended pattern that shifts as you move up the next octave. You got it at the end of the explanation. I found I shift my first finger up 2 frets on the D string and continue playing the same pattern as the low E and A strings.
Yeah.
It seems to help me understand the scale degrees when I'm playing. Okay,
100%.
cool.
So all you have to do, for example, if you're doing this, and you have that shift, is fill in the rest of the scales, right? So I only thought about one shape when I was going up there, and that's that 6-note shape that we started off with. And that makes it a lot easier to just fill in the notes below and above that one little shape that's kind of hardcore Aeolian feeling. Right.
We have 2 more questions. This one is from Blues Hawk. Hi, Nate and Andrew. Do you have any exercises that will allow me to separate my fingers further?
Start, like for example, this scale, pretty high up the fretboard. All right.
Which scale are you playing?
Just the 3-note per string Aeolian mode, minor scale that we went over. And then as you do that, start to work your way down. Because if you do it on here, it can be more of a stretch, right? But also, don't feel like you have to leave your index finger planted. I did that for a long time. And if you're doing hand rolls like that or something, you might need to. But you can also pick up your fingers, especially when you start having the spread of one fret in between each finger. Don't feel like you have to keep that index finger planted back there. And then just go through that and work on the stretching, or work on not leaving your index finger planted as you play through the scale. And then maybe the next week, go down 2 frets. Next week after that, go down 2 frets until you're all the way back here, or even on the F minor, right? I didn't feel a stretch once during that because I left
Yeah.
I didn't leave my index finger planted, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
Yeah, you could do the same with the 3-note per string major scale.
Yep.
That's the one I use to practice that kind of stuff. But those are kind of the biggest stretches you'll ever make. Right?
3-note per string minor pentatonic scales are nasty. And this, if I'm feeling like I need to
see.
quickly
Yeah.
get my legato in order, or if I need to get my stretches in order, I'll go through those instead of playing with just 3-note per string scales. This is a really nasty stretch because if you're doing hammer-ons really fast on one string, you kind of have to leave your index finger planted.
Yeah.
And there's a 2-fret stretch between your first and third fingers.
I was just gonna say one that I always do is this one,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Kills.
That's a really good one. So if you're looking for a challenge, do that. But start with the other ones at first.
Yeah, and definitely go through the. Is it just Building Dexterity series on?
Yep.
In the members area? That'll be a great one. Okay, one more question here from Gerardus. Hi guys, you mentioned each mode is built taking the major scale and starting from a different degree. Is it the same with chords?
Each note in a major scale has a chord that goes along with it, like a diatonic naturally occurring chord. And this is just like the fundamental options that you have at your disposal. So let's go to the key of G major. Right? That's your one chord. If you're in a G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. 7 notes, right? Each note has a scale and a chord that naturally goes along with it. The second scale degree in A has a minor chord that goes along with it. The third scale degree has a minor chord that goes along with it. Fourth scale degree, major.
Yeah.
Fifth scale degree, major. Sixth scale degree, minor. And then the seventh scale degree, minor 7 flat 5, which is the oddball. But each one of those are naturally occurring diatonic chords in any major key. It's your starting point. It's not the only chords you can have, but they are the naturally occurring ones.
Right.
Each one of those chords or scale degrees you can have has a specific mode that goes along with it too. So all you're doing is starting on, for example, if you're here in the key of G major, and you start on the second scale degree, and play the notes in the key of G major, you'll be playing in the A Dorian over that minor A minor chord. It is a minor mode because the third is lowered. The same thing goes the third scale degree, B minor. You're going to have a B in Dorian Phrygian. And I'm just playing the notes in the G major scale starting on a B. And the same thing for the fourth scale degree, you're going to have a C major. Play the notes in a G scale starting on a C, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. And the fifth scale degree is a D. Play the notes in a G major scale starting on a D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. And the same thing, just 6th scale degree, 7th scale degree, all the way up. But modes are more than that. It's kind of when you're taking that, for example, the area of the 2nd scale degree and focusing on that and making that your tonality. And the particular notes in that mode, the Dorian mode, that are quite different and contrasty to the notes in what would be like a major scale, right? So. And if you have access to, let's see, I don't think I've done a series on it yet, but I do have a jam track for you that maybe I'll put up in the forums. All it is a drone on like one note. And what you can do is play a G major scale over that, emphasize the G notes, and then change to what would be like maybe any of the other modes starting on a G, so maybe a G minor scale. Or if you want to hear what a Dorian mode sounds like, or if you want to hear a G mixolydian sounds like, play that. Right?
Or G Locrian.
Yeah, and singing them to me is more valuable than actually playing them at first because you're really ingraining what different modes sound like. But if that's really confusing to you, don't worry about all the other ones. Just start with G major and G minor.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Let's do C major and C minor.
Yeah.
C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Then switch to a minor. C. Right?
Yeah.
And if you want to take it even one step further, just play a C note and then imply the harmony behind it. I play a C note. Those are two different worlds. Just think about modes as being different colors. The Ionian mode's one happy and bright color. Aeolian mode with the lower third, sixth, and seventh are a little bit darker. Saturtone, a little different color. That's it.
And for those of you guys, especially those of you who are members who are maybe a little confused by this, if you go through the whole music theory plan, it does help make
It helps a lot. I would go through like all the music theories and then major scales one and minor scales one as soon as it's out in the next week or two.
Yeah, it'll really help. Well, that's it for questions. Now, Nate, did you mention there was another question from...
Yes, on my Facebook page, somebody mentioned, well, that's great, but in a lot of songs, there are non-diatonic chords or chords that don't match the key. What do I do about those chords? So the example this guy had, I forget who it was, but in a typical, like a diatonic minor blues, you would have a one chord minor, four chord that's minor, and a five chord that's minor. If it's stuck strictly to diatonic chords, because the 1, 4, and 5 in any minor key are minor chords.
Yeah.
1, 4, 5, just G minor, C minor, D minor. But he mentioned that a lot of songs have like what would be a dominant or major 5 chord. So what do I do with that? There's a natural minor scale won't work over that 5 chord. So G minor, C minor, D7.
Sounds cool.
And one of the things that you can do is completely ignore the 5 chord until it comes around and just play like a natural minor scale. Over the G and the C. And when you get to that dominant 5 chord, what I would probably do is use some kind of dominant arpeggio, so like a D7 arpeggio or a G harmonic minor scale, because a harmonic minor scale, all it does is take the 7th scale degree of a normal minor scale and raise it by 1/2 step. So that 7th scale degree is right next to the root note, right? So which gives and all that is the third of the 5 chord. And hang with me here. On a diatonic 1-4-5 progression in the key of G, you have G minor, C minor, D minor, which a D minor is just D, F, A. When you put it up to a D, F sharp A, a major chord, that's the 7th scale degree that's been raised. So that means that I can use a harmonic minor, because it's the same scale degree, the 7th scale degree is coming up by 1/2 step. Or I can use some kind of dominant arpeggio and not have to worry about a scale at all. Or I can do the, and emphasize a D.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I would do the same thing. So that makes sense to me. Okay. Now, did we want to play out on something?
I want to play out on that, yeah.
You want to play out on that? Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Well, is there anything else you wanted to?
We have a fun lesson coming up next episode. We're going to be doing, well, I'm not going to say. You'll see this week.
Yeah.
It's to your benefit in more ways than one.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be very cool. Okay. Now, I just want to make sure I got this chord progression right.
G minor.
throw a wrench into it. Okay.
Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4.